So I assume you're going to talk about textbook
Yep.
adoptions, which is item A on our new business.
Yep.
You let him go first and then he
Just
left?
I would have stayed. If I would have gone first, I would. He is so dead when I see him again.
All right, page number, Kylie? Mary Ann?
80.
80. My thing says 83, but that could be different. Good evening. I am here to give you some information on the textbooks that we would like to adopt for next school year. If you remember back in September, I provided the board with an update of where, kind of a preview of what we were looking at so that it wouldn't be a shock to the system when I came this time and said, here's what we need. The good news is that, as you may have noticed, if you look at the bottom of the summary of those textbook proposals, is what I'm actually proposing now is just shy of $29,000 less than it was when I came to talk to you in September. We were able to get 3 of our textbooks prices down anywhere from $2,000 to $5,500, and we were able to scale back some of the requests and do more of a rolling request. For example, in our Spanish department, who wanted to do multiple textbooks at once, and we pulled that back, and we're going to do more of a slow rollout there. So the textbooks that we are putting up for adoption are the AP Psychology textbook, which is a book that we've currently been using for about 13 years. The new book that we are proposing, actually we're very excited about, was just published at the beginning of this year, and one of the contributors to the textbook was the table read leader for the AP Psychology exam for a number of years with the College Board, and the publication of the book was actually delayed until the beginning of this year because she had to be out of her College Board position for long enough for it to be safe for her to go in and publish. So we're able to use her as a resource through that textbook, which we're very excited about having that opportunity with a textbook with that level of input from someone who's had that intimate of exposure to the AP test in that area. We are continuing our adoption of the Discovery Education Tech Book series, which we started with Earth Science and Applied Chemistry and Physics. This year, or for next year, we are asking to be able to continue implementing that with our chemistry and our honors chemistry classes. This is the one textbook that you will see that does not have a request for a hard copy, and I know there was a question about that. The Discovery Education is called a tech book, so there is no hardcover textbook that exists with Discovery Education. So where 3 of the 4 other resources that we're requesting have an actual hard copy, the tech book doesn't. It's meant to be what they call a science experience, and so that is completely an online platform. It does not have a hard copy that comes with it, so that's why you won't see a request there for an actual hard copy that will go into the classrooms, and that has worked out very well as we've seen it roll out in Applied Chemistry and Physics and our Earth Science classes. And then our Spanish, we got into kind of a pickle with Spanish because the publisher that had been publishing our books went out of business and is no longer going to publish our books anymore that we were using. And with that, not being able to order any additional materials from them if we needed replacement or if we needed to update our materials, all of the online licenses were gone. And so we would no longer have access to any of the online resources. So we were pretty much dead in the water with our Spanish series if we continued to go that route. And so this is the beginning of what will be a slow rollout through Spanish, so that we can make sure that we are doing our due diligence to the process of really adopting a new series and taking that step by step instead of jumping in head first. So we're going with just Spanish 1.
Do you know how old the Spanish 1 books you're replacing are about?
The current textbook, I don't have that. I don't have that available in front of me.
I'm just, are we careful that we're not going to pick another publisher that?
Yes, they vetted, and they work. Our Spanish teachers have a lot of connection with ICFL, with the which is the World Language Community, the National Conference for World Languages. So they vetted quite a few books and went with a publisher who's been around for a while, and they felt very comfortable, that would be sustainable.
It's 10 years.
10 years. Thank you very much.
So that's when you start wanting to replace them anyway, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And then our U.S. government textbook was last purchased. The full set of books was purchased in 2002, and some replacement copies were purchased in 2009 and then 2011. So we wanted to be able to have some consistency there in terms of that government textbook. And there is obviously a lot that has occurred since 2002. So there's updates in demographics, there's updates in political trends, Supreme Court cases. So it's a much more updated version, which also then again has the ebook that's compatible with those student Chromebooks. And that was our one of our bigger savings, where we saw initially thinking that we were going to be about $4,500 more on that U.S. government textbook, but we were able to drop that down. So as you can see at the bottom, we were looking in September at about $108,000, and now we're looking at shy of 80. So we've been able to bring it down, like I said, just shy of $29,000. And so, you know, we wanted to be very mindful about making sure that we made conscious decisions and kind of took this at a slower pace. We didn't want to just dive in, for example, with the Spanish. Every time I present textbooks, I always have samples with me so that if you want to, you can take a look at them. The tech book for science is a little different because I can't show it to you, but what I provided for you with the other 3 textbooks that are on Mary Ann's cart is my login to the Discovery Education platform, so that if you wanted to go in and you wanted to play around with it a little bit, you'd be able to see some of that functionality. And then the government book, the Spanish book, and the AP Psychology book are all over there for your review, and I'll leave those with Mary Ann in case anybody wants to take a look at those.
Kylie, I know we had one question, and I think you might have touched on it, but just to reiterate, why do we still need to do classroom sets in a few classes?
Teachers would like to have classroom sets in classes in the event that something happens with a student's Chromebook, or there's something that they don't have access, or the battery is dead, or they need to be able to contact the student's academic support teacher, let's say, and that teacher needs to be able to help a student, and maybe they don't have a login, but they are able to have access to the hardcover book right there. We're still in a situation where having that hard copy in the room as a backup for students, should we need it, we just want to make sure that any student who comes into a class at any point in time always has access to those resources.
So like with the 60, I'm assuming we're doing it because we have roughly 2 teachers primarily that...
Well, U.S. government is actually, with getting 60, U.S. government actually this year, I believe there's 5 different teachers who teach that because it's a semester-long course. It ends up being one of those courses that fills out some teachers' schedules. So in that situation, we ordered 60 because we want to be able to cover like anywhere from 4 to 6 teachers, depending on how the scheduling works out. We were trying to stick with, like in AP Psychology, we have 1 teacher that teaches that. So we were trying to do 15. Kristen and I kind of talked through and tried to use 15 as our guideline of saying if we have 15 books in the classroom, we could handle support having 1, or a study skills teachers having 1, and still having kids be able to access them in the room. But US Gov is tricky because anywhere from 4 to 6 teachers are going to teach that every year. So we want to be able to make sure that we arm all of the teachers with those resources.
So the goal is still to primarily tech
Yes.
books.
Yep.
E-books, tech
Yes,
books.
and the nice thing about that is you can see that most of these are multi-year licenses. So when something is a multi-year license, if there's updates that take place, you have the benefit of those. Whereas if I am just purchasing a hardcover textbook and the publisher decides in a year that they're going to revamp the whole system, now I have something that's not as current. So the ebook licenses give us that freedom to know that for those 6 years that we have those books, we're always going to have the most up-to-date resources.
And I know you keep a 3-year chart, and so I'm assuming we haven't gotten to this point yet, but I'm thinking even from the start of your tenure here and Kristen's end and her last year in your role, we have to start getting close to where some of these ebook licenses are coming up now. So we need to make sure we're accounting for those.
I believe that
as well.
occurs next year.
Okay. Were there any other questions, Kylie, you need to cover?
No, just the one about the hard copy versus the electronic copy.
Any questions on this side?
Nope.
Other side? I might have forgot to ask this one. I didn't understand in your chart where you summarized the cost over the historical period. Why did we put on 2018-19 replacement textbook costs? Because this is just for new, and you might still have some replacement
Yeah,
textbooks
we
coming our
don't
way?
do, yeah, we typically don't go through the process of what needs to be replaced until around March.
Okay.
So usually that's something that we wait a little bit longer on, and
Okay.
it's something that.
And that's just for books that need to be rebound,
Yes.
or we need to buy a few additional books. We're not replacing
Yes.
a new.
Correct.
We're not buying a new textbook.
Correct, and that cost is typically very minimal.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kylie.
Thank you.
So we'll get back on our order for our, Scott, you got to stay anyway, so I hope you didn't mind switching, but